Hello, 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 hello. Good evening. Hello, greetings. Good evening. Greetings. Good evening. I'm DuEwa Frazier, and tonight we have a wonderful guest, and he is award-winning poet and children's author, Professor Dr. Tony Medina. I'm so pleased to be having another conversation with Medina because he has just released his 22nd book. That's right, find another author who has so many books. So I'm not going to do my usual long introduction today. It was kind of a busy day today, and I don't want to take up Dr. Medina's time. So hopefully let's go ahead and bring him on, and let's hear about the terrific words and achievements he has and his book, Death with Occasional Smiling, here at Nerdacity Podcast on IG. And I'm your host, DuEwa Frazier, by the way. Let's pick up with Tony Medina now. Hope everyone's having a blessed Saturday and being safe, enjoying the weather, and just feeling some good vibes. Greetings, Dr. Medina.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And how are you doing?
I'm all right. This is a little weird. I can't really see you that well.
Okay. You might have to adjust your phone or whatever you got going on. Some people use their iPad. I'm using my phone just because that's the only way that I access IG.
I can't use my laptop.
There's no way to do a live from a laptop unless you're hooking up some other equipment. Unfortunately, yeah. Are you able to see me now?
Well, I can see you, but I'm not sure if I'm coming across. Am I coming across?
You are, but you come back a little bit from the camera. Yes. And I need it to be pulled down a little bit. There we go.
Hold on for a second. Let me just, this is bizarre, to say the least.
But you know what, Medina?
Yeah.
Once you do this, you'll be able to like pull it off without a hitch with anybody. So we're breaking you in today.
How's that?
That's perfect.
Okay, I'm just like bugging out. All right.
You look good. We got some poets in here.
Really?
Okay, Donna Akiba said you were both visible and audible. Thank you very much, Donna Akiba. Medina, did you hear that?
Yes, thank you, Akiba.
Okay.
She's a great scholar.
And
she retired from Spelman.
Okay, congratulations,
Department of English.
Professor Akiba. And we also have Benita Penn, poet Benita Penn on the live. Thank you so much. We also have poet Alan King on the live. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who's tuning in to see Dr. Tony Medina today on Nerdacity Podcast.
Brought to you by Deer Park.
No. Okay. Medina, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I
Medina,
like your fro.
Do you want me to read your, gargantuan biography or,
No, I think you should come from the heart. You know what I mean? And make it short.
Okay. All right. Tony Medina is one of the jewels of Black literature in our time. People often speak of eras in history and literature, whether it's Harlem Renaissance or the Black Arts Movement or even, the hip hop literati. And I feel like Tony Medina brings all of those eras and literary traditions into the forefront in our time, and he bridges them together beautifully. As a poet, as a children's young adult author, as a scholar, as a professor, and certainly as an editor. And so today, we're here to not only discuss Medina's work as he sees fit, but also to celebrate the release of his 22nd book, Death with Occasional Smiling, and also chop it up about the anniversary of the notable anthology that Medina edited, Bum Rush the Page, a very, very wonderful anthology that I use as an educator and was really a great representation of hip hop generation poets and writers. And so, Professor Medina, thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate you. I appreciate your work. And I appreciate your perspectives that you offer in every time I interview you.
Thank you, DuEwa. It's interesting when you mentioned Bum Rush the Page. Actually, I think it was my introduction in Bum Rush the Page that got me the job at Howard University.
Whoa.
That I wasn't even seeking, you know. Dr. Eleanor Traylor, the great Eleanor Traylor, the legendary Black scholar, she went ballistic off of my introduction, and she came upon it because she was writing something about Sonia Sanchez's work, and Sonia did the foreword to Bum Rush the Page, which I co-edited with my main man, the great legendary, you know, Luis Reyes-Rivera. And so she knew about me. Well, she already saw me in different various circles and stuff, but, and also at Sonia's party and stuff like that, or Baraka's. But she told Hakeem Madhubuti that she wanted, he told her that I was getting my PhD, and she went crazy and said, I want Medina at Howard. So that's kind of like how it happened. And I was in the middle of my program, actually.
Wow. That's an amazing story. And I don't think I've heard about any scholar that's gotten a job in higher ed quite like that, Medina. So you're the ancestors were definitely working on your behalf.
I had a feeling that something like that would happen, that my work would lead to someone hiring me or something, because of the nature of the work and the fact that I was able to publish so many, you know, different folks, and a lot of them, you know, are scholars and academics, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, definitely. I love always hearing that story. It inspires me for sure. And it's just proof that, you know, what you put out there does come back to you. The positivity and your intent and what you've been sharing with the world, with your literature, your words.
Thank you. And it's really interesting. I can't believe I'm sandwiched between these two books 20 years apart. Of course, Bum Rush wasn't my first book, but it's 20 years ago. And Death Was a Case of Smiling, you know, is on the present end of that.
It's on the other end.
And I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Bruce George, who tapped myself and Lewis for editing this book, and also Max Rodriguez and Danny Simmons, who along with Bruce George were kind of like book packagers in getting this to Chris Jackson, our fearless editor at Random House, basically. Yeah.
And so what has changed with poetry or with your work since Bum Rush the Page? Have you changed as an artist since releasing that anthology?
I think all artists, you know, if they're really serious, they do change and grow, you know. I mean, I think the essence of the stuff that I was writing early on is still there, but my palette has kind of, you know, grown, and it's kind of a wider palette. And, you know, kind of like Parks talks about in terms of having a choice of weapons. I have more of a choice of weapons, you know.
Truly. Do you have more to write about since Bum Rush the Page?
I mean, there's always something to write about. I mean, we live in a crazy ass place. I mean, that's why I have this title, Death Was Occasionally Smiling. I mean, under capitalism, under imperialism, you know, all that isms. You know, it's like death is always looming over us. And we have to have those moments of levity, or else we can't even make it through. So, yeah. And that collection, actually, I had that title like 5 or 6 years prior to it being published this year. So it just happened to be in the middle of a pandemic.
Isn't that something, how it just came together like that with the title? Did you think about changing the title at some point? Or was it always fitting?
Well, that was interesting because my editor, she didn't like the title and wanted me to change it. And I was like a bit confounded by that. And I just said, after a while, I consulted with a couple of friends, and we're like, fuck that shit, you know. Came back strong.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, now
because I thought that, you know, I was asking my friends, I was like, do you think it's too insensitive a title for this time period that we're living under? Because, it was in the heart of the pandemic and people were dying like crazy. And
Right.
we had 18-wheelers in Brooklyn, where people were using as freezers for bodies. And so it was heavy. It was a heavy time. And now we have this Delta variant, and it's come close to home because my cousin's mom passed and her grandfather and her uncle passed from COVID, and her mother was completely unvaccinated, so she was one of the breakthrough victims, as they say, from that.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
And so, Tony, has it been your job, do you feel, at least in this last year or two, to actually report, even poetically, on what is going on? Or is that just your, intuition, your writers? Is that just how your muse works?
That's how my muse works. I think it's just I'm naturally inclined. I always see myself in the tradition of people like Langston Hughes, Baraka, Sonia Sanchez, Jane Cortez, Victor Cruz, Ishmael Reed, all these great writers, and even going into the Latin American, Central American bag, where you have Ernesto Cardenal and Roque Dalton and all these cats, Nicana Parra of Chile, Neruda, of course. So it's just the way I think, the way I feel, and how I express myself through art in various ways, be it a graphic novel, be it a children's narrative, be it an anthology itself. I mean, if you look at Bum Rush the Page, the whole structure of Bum Rush the Page, the Def Poetry Jam, is completely, utterly political, a political statement on every page.
And so, not to divert too much, but that makes me think about one of your current projects. You are currently editing an anthology. This is going to be a new work in the similar tradition. Did you want to mention that or
I am working on another anthology with Sister Dr. Pettis, for Thurwell Press.
Yes.
And the title is taken from a great poem of Jane Cortez, Everywhere Drums, and she has a CD of poetry performance called Everywhere Drums. So yeah, that's another anthology I'm doing. I did one a couple of years back, Resisting Arrest, Poems to Stretch the Sky. That was kind of really nice to do. And that's very, very heavy duty, dealing with police brutality and stuff of that nature. Black Lives Matter poetics.
True indeed.
Yeah.
And so
anthologies are rough.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, on one hand, I love the fact that I'm able to publish so many people, but it's a lot of work, and you're dealing with so many different personalities, and then you have to reject people, which I don't like to do, but we have to. When myself and Lewis were working on this, it was a great experience because Lewis for some reason he wanted to do it at my crib, right? Yeah. So at that time we didn't have like social media and stuff like that. Right. We had the internet.
We had the e-drum. We had Kalamu's e-drum.
Yeah, Kalamu Yasalam's e-drum was literally the social platform that all of us writers had and artists together. It was before social media, so he had his finger on the pulse of that medium. So we had the e-drum, and on one hand I had a PO box. Lewis had his own PO box. I had people email me stuff. I also did an anthology called In Defense of Mumia.
Mumia, right. Yeah.
With S.E. Anderson, the great S.E. Anderson, who was, like Lewis, a mentor of mine in a sense, from the older generation. I always learn a lot from the older generations, Yeah. And so, that was an anthology that was really hard because I had to like type in the whole damn manuscript, literally. Whoa. And I had those old ass Mac computers.
Okay. Because you're saying this is before everyone was just sending the digital submissions.
Yeah, and a lot of people would just hand Sam some stuff in his hand or mail it to me, and then we had to type everything out and, you know, all that stuff. It was rough. But with Bum Rush the Page, Lewis would come all the way uptown to Harlem from Brooklyn, right? And I'm not sure if you know anything about Louis Verdi's Verb, which you should, but
oh yeah, I used to take workshops with him at Sister's Place in Brooklyn.
And he was married to Barbara Killens,
right?
John Oliver Killens' wife, and they lived in this former brownstone. And his former brownstone was a very legendary place where all these soirees would be going down, and people like Gil Noble and Dr. John Henry Clark and all these folks would be up in there, and ideas that would end up being on Gil Noble's show on ABC on, I think it was Sundays, would end up starting at John O. Killens's. Yeah. So Lewis would tell me all these stories, you know, while we're sifting through the work and making different piles and stuff like that. He'll sit in my wing chair, you know, like he was holding court, and I'll be in the other seat, and we'll just be talking, and he'll be regaling me with all these stories and stuff while we're working on this anthology. Yeah.
That's amazing. You know, so many, it seems like so many of our elders in Black literature have gone on. Is there anyone you look to currently, you know, still as a mentor, or at least someone to kind of talk shop with, that you care to mention?
Well, I mean, the ones that I see that are really keeping the torch going, you know, I see like Ishmael Reed, Quincy Troop, you know, Margaret Porter Troop is out there. You know, they're doing a lot of stuff. Rashida Ismaili is another person. Danny Schott is a little older than me, but not too much, but he was mentored by like Allen Ginsberg and people like that. So Danny does things, you know, out of Hoboken, but also a lot in New York. There's a lot of people that's still around. It's just hard. You know, we have Askia Torre up in the Boston area, you know, with all those other great writers that are all up there, you know. So there's a lot, but we're losing a lot as well. And it dismays me because the 60s and 70s poets didn't have the social media and the type of exposure that a lot of people can have just by simply being on Instagram or Twitter or whatever and putting their stuff out there. And a lot of times I feel like they get neglected. You know, I mean, Haki Madhubuti, of course, is out there too. So I want to mention all those folks.
Right.
Their work gets neglected. It doesn't get the attention that it should be getting and deserved and being taught in the schools and stuff like that. There would be no, you know, our generation or the millennials or the Generation Zs without these folks who laid the foundation and who sat at the feet of the Harlem Renaissance, you know, artists and, you know.
So true. Do you think that, you know, in the Africana studies programs, various Black studies programs around the country, that there are some scholars who are still keeping their work alive, bringing those works into the classroom however they can?
I hope so. I think, you know, I've known scholars like Dr. Carr at Howard and Myers and all those cats who are very much in the tradition and teaching from the tradition and stuff like that, and imbue that on their students and stuff like that. I'm not sure across the board, you know, across the country, but you'd be surprised. Scholars are in the archives and, you know, they know the tradition.
And so what are you most proud of about your recent book, Medina, Death with Occasional Smiling? It's a wonderful collection.
Thank you.
I was privileged to write a review, and, you know, I at first was really intimidated by the book. I have to be honest with you. When I opened it and started looking at the various themes, I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna, you know, how can I write something that will even make sense? Because your range in poetry and storytelling is so broad and so, you know, masterful that, you know, no one would want to, you know, miss something or even, you know, what do you call it, minimize, you know, what you're trying to do in the work. But I wanted to tell you, I really have enjoyed your book. It's certainly a book that should be used in college and for creative writing classes, and, you know, definitely Black studies, courses in Black poetics. So for anyone who's watching, currently an educator, it's something that I would love to see widely used. In saying that, what are your thoughts about what you most love about this collection, or even your process in pulling it together?
That's a good question, and thank you for all those nice, kind words about the work. What I like about it is that it does have a broad range. I always admire writers and poets who have a range, you know, and that just do one, you know, like one trick ponies or whatever. Because I read widely, and so it reflects that, not just literature. I'm like, you know, all over the place with things that I love to consume. And it kind of reflects my personality, you know, my world outlook, and it's a lot of satire, even though death is in the title, you know.
Yes.
I guess it would be like a blues book. The thing is that I liked the process, because I had this manuscript that I was tinkering with for like a while. Then I had a millennial editor. And, you know, the millennials they have a different sensibility, you know, and they kind of get offended, or maybe not get offended, but a lot of things are touchy, to them. And so they may not get your jokes, you know, or your references and stuff like that. So, you know, at first I was bugging out at the choices, right, or the comments from the editor. And I had to run back to my crew and get some people that I know who were editors, but were my generation and stuff. And then they helped me build my confidence back up, and I went back in there. And so initially this book had like 7 sections.
Wow.
It had 7 sections, and each section opened with a quote, right? And so it was just a mess. And so between my editor's input and my friends, input, I was able to rethink it, rework it, and get it down to 3 solid, tight sections.
And it's beautiful. It makes perfect sense. Like, I can't even imagine it. I even mentioned to you, this is 3 books in one. As I was reading it, I was seeing 3 books. So I can almost, like, I can't even, like, the 7 sections, that would like blow up anybody's mind.
But, you know, I was able to like take stuff out, put some stuff back in, and then new stuff that I was writing, get it in there, and it all like came together, and it was very tight. And then my publisher, Michael,
Indolent
he comes
Books.
in, from
Indolent Books, right?
Yeah, he comes in, and he gives extra copy editing stuff, which made it even tighter. And I got other people to help copy it and stuff like that. So I just think it just came together nicely. It took a while, but I think by taking that much time, I was able to get it as tight as I could, you know. In
going back to some of your peers, in that process, was it that you were like, you didn't want to lose some of the poems that you felt really should have been in it? Or was it more just really kind of getting a translation for, as you mentioned, millennial editor, what exactly is she talking about? You know?
No, it was getting people that knew my work, knew generationally my references. And weren't overly sensitive to certain things, because I think that in this time period, you know, artists are becoming handcuffed as to, you know, what they say and what they write about.
And educators and professors as well, what they can and should say and what they can't.
But taking risks is at risk, in a sense, you know, in art. So I think that you just got to stand, you know, your ground, in a sense, with the work, and just be like, look, you know, I gotta make this choice. I think that that's what happens in these MFA programs. You know, people go in there one way and then they leave another way. And when they leave, they have all these mofos up in their heads and they can't create, or they're too timid, you know what I mean?
No,
or they overly polish something until it disappears.
There you go. You are being told how to think and how to write. And if you
or you get kind of handicapped where you're so hesitant that you don't write, you become paralyzed, you know, as a creative. I think that's happened to people, you know.
Yes.
You know how they have NPR voice?
Yes.
MFA voice, you know?
Yes, and true indeed.
I think I talked about that in my intro.
That's a whole nother conversation. I might have to write about that one day, Medina. You know.
That would be nice because, you know, we need more pimp smacks in the world of literature and academia.
Indeed. And so, you know, of the themes that are in your book, you know, you have poems on social justice. You're referencing hip hop, the Bronx. You're referencing certainly the pandemic. And just, you know, you mentioned satire. And when we first talked about it, and I was like, you know, before I saw the book, I was like, so tell me about the themes. And when you mentioned satire at first, and you're thinking about the title, you're going, how does he do satire when saying death with occasional smiling and there's thoughts on the pandemic? Like, I thought, I was very curious as to how you would present that, but it was beautiful. There were some poems that were like short stories, or I guess you would call them, will you call them vignettes? What do you call those? They were like...
It's all of that. It's flash fiction, vignettes,
right.
Prose
flash
poetry.
Fiction.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed those. It was like the start of reading a novel, and then you get the breaks. In between, you have the poems, and it's like a continuous voice on a number of different topics, but it's like talking to you now. It's talking to you about what's happening now. The voice is. But the satire is needed because it's like, you know, you hear the saying, I'm laughing to keep from crying. If the mess out here wasn't so ridiculous, I mean, you almost have to cry and laugh because it's just that ridiculous.
I mean,
I think, you know, you do such an excellent job of showing us grief, but then on the other hand, there's also, there's humor in some of the, not all, of course. But it's humor in a ridiculous sense, like, you know, damn, look at what the human species is going through. Yeah. Like, it's almost like a, you know, how are we going to get out of that? Boom, boom. You know, you know what I mean?
It's the theater of the absurd.
Yes.
And I mean, come on, I'm bringing everything that I am to the table, right? You know, I came up in the most adverse conditions. You know, I had a mother and father. They were literally, you know, heroin addicts, you know, and I was born with heroin raging through my system, you know, as a baby. And the doctors didn't know what the hell to do at that time. And so, you know, I'm raised in the South Bronx and then go to Throssack housing projects. Hip hop comes to fruition at that same time as I'm a little kid, you know. And so, you know, we have Nixon in the background. And then, you know, Carter and then Reagan and all this craziness. And then, you know, we came up with HIV and AIDS, herpes, and crack.
The crack pandemic, all sandwiched in there.
Yeah, so.
Right.
And we also grew up with, you know, a lot of stuff on TV that we watched a lot, you know, like The Honeymooners, The Odd Couple, you know, all this stuff. So the humor is always there. It's from where I come from, you know. I'm from the South Bronx. In Harlem, and my family's all from Harlem, you know, so it's crazy.
You also give us quite a bit of political commentary, and you do that in real life, you know, but you also do that in your poetry. As you know, we went through this, it was almost like a pandemic of politics, a pandemic of disease, a pandemic of brutalities. There's so many things converging, and you were rolling that out in your poems in this collection as well. And so what was that like to kind of really, you know, merge your thoughts on politics, as well as just, just the tragedy of the pandemic as a whole.
Well, I think that's what makes it fortunate to be a poet, right? Or a writer, particularly a poet, because we jump on things instantly, comedians do the same thing. And so you have social media, right? Where people can just, it's like, you look at TV, how people used to look at TV or read the newspaper and just like talk back to it or curse it out,
right?
Or, and just like argue with it.
Yeah.
So we do that with social media, right?
Yeah.
People need outlets for that, right?
True.
Trying to make sense of the world. I just happen, we just happen to be lucky enough, fortunate enough, and a lot of folks that are on here listening, to be able to put it into a form, there's art, there's a work of art, there's a work of beauty, to express it. I remember clearly when, who was it that was getting killed? Freddie Gray got killed, right?
Was that in Baltimore?
That was in Baltimore.
Okay.
Prince even did a rest in peace, the great Prince did a concert to raise money and stuff for folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he was killed, and it was like, of course, it was like a 24-hour loop on the news, right?
Right.
So I remember getting so like amped about it, consuming all this stuff. Mm-hmm. I go to sleep and I wake up the next morning with this poem, literally in my head and ready to come out.
Yeah. And
so I write it down, and it becomes, it's in the book. I mean, it becomes, this poem about Freddie Gray, but trying to make sense of the absurdity of it.
Sure.
And thinking about another case where a young brother was killed with his hands cuffed behind his back. And point blank, shot in the chest in the back seat of a police car, and the ME basically rules that it was a suicide. I mean,
right, like he killed himself with his hands behind his back.
So I was able to like get out this work. I'm trying to process all this stuff and not lose my mind, right? Not die of high blood pressure, racism, like my father did in Harlem, you know what I mean, with a stroke at 68. So I have that outlet to be able to do that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because, we have to, as creatives, we have to remember, just when we begin to feel that closing in feeling, whether it's depression or anxiety or even loneliness, that we do have an outlet. We have, a gift and a talent that can certainly be used not only to heal ourselves, but to help others heal as well. So I appreciate you mentioning that we are never alone, and we are never without a solution to kind of get some of those things out.
And teaching allows for that. When you teach either literature, composition, or creative writing, you're able to engage students, in real time about things that are happening in the world, and let them, and they're able to express themselves, either through an essay or verbally in conversation or creatively,
Yes, indeed. And so, Medina, I know that there are folks that are certainly here to also hear some of your wonderful poems. I could talk to you for hours, as we normally do, just getting your genius thoughts and perspectives on everything, but wondering if you might begin to share a poem, and then we kind of chop it up and kind of go back and forth.
Well, since I mentioned it, I'll read the Freddie Gray piece because it makes sense. And so this is what came out of that. It's called, and if for people who don't know, Freddie Gray was killed in Baltimore, and the incident was that, oh damn it, hold on for a second.
Okay.
My laptop was unplugged. It was going to be like low battery. So he was riding his bike. He sees cops, and then he tries to turn the other way because he just wants to avoid any trouble, whatever. They chase him. They wrestle him to the ground. They cuff him. And as they putting him in the back of the police truck, which back in the day, they used to call it a paddy wagon.
Paddy wagon, right.
Which was a racial kind of like terminology for Irish folks just coming in to New York Harbor and stuff like that. From the potato famine. Yeah.
Okay.
And so they break his neck. and you could basically see it on camera. And then they throw him in the back of the wagon, right? They don't strap him in. They don't strap him in, and they take him on this ride. And eventually, he slips into a coma, and in the hospital, he passes, right? So that's the thing. And it was outpouring resistance taking place, at the time. Even Prince did a big giant concert to raise money and stuff like that. So, and it's ironic because Prince wasn't around for George Floyd's
that's right,
murder.
Because he was,
in his own city. From the crushed voice of Freddie Gray, I am the magic Negro, the black Houdini who done it to himself. I handcuffed my own damn self. I threw myself in the back of the patrol car, my hands shackled behind my back, slave ship cargo ago. I am the magic Negro, the black Houdini who done it, does it to himself, him black self. See ma? No hands. I snatched the pistol from the white man's mind, from the back of the patrol car. Suck on this, Houdini. I grabs the gun and shoot myself in the chest, neo-colonial style. The autopsy report says, damn, would have been easier to walk on water. I bet you a quarter he done shot himself. I am the magic Negro, spineless. I broke my own spine after hog-tying myself into a pretzel. Even Houdini, who done it, would envy. Only to turn myself into a human pinball, rattling around the steel gullet of a Negro pickup truck, once reserved for newly arrived potato famine New York Irish drunks down on their luck. Me, moi, it is I who was Othello. Oh, hell no, yes, me, the magic Negro, the black Houdini, who done it, does it all the time to himself, his own damned self.
Yes. And what's so masterful about that poem, you talk about satire. We know that, as you mentioned, no, death isn't funny, tragedy isn't funny. But you pinpoint the trope of the magical Negro. Negroes, Black people are supposedly, we feel no pain. We can take a licking and keep on ticking. We're so magical. As you mentioned, we can, be tied hands behind our back and still kill ourselves. It's like, come on, how ridiculous.
Not to mention the children on that scene as children, remember? That's how they did Trayvon Martin? They kept calling him a man, and they infantilized, what's his name? Who's the pig who killed Trayvon? George Zimmerman, right?
Yeah, I'm not giving him any coverage here. And the same for Tamir Rice. As 11, 12-year-old boy, he has a toy gun.
They shot Tamir Rice literally with the police car still rolling up on him.
So, the whole idea of, a Black child is never a child, and a Black person is never a human being that actually feels pain.
I mean, Phyllis Wheatley, they had a trial for Phyllis Wheatley to see if she had a soul or not because she wrote a book of poetry. I mean, this is the absurdity of white supremacy.
Yes. Well, because she wasn't supposed to be able to read and write,
She didn't have a soul according to the U.S. government.
And if it wasn't, exactly, and there we go. We're not laughing because it's funny, it's painful, it's almost so ridiculous. It's like, wow, is this really how human beings are being treated, have been treated historically? Thank you, Queen Amina.
Well, I'm gonna because you keep mentioning the pandemic and the book and stuff.
Yeah.
This happened to be the poem that I wanted to be the last piece in the collection.
Okay.
Which I was writing it in the midst of that lockdown that we had the summer before this past summer, right?
So that would have been 2020, right? No.
2020.
2020, that's right.
In the heart of the pandemic and the heart of the Black Lives Matter movements that were taking place globally, right?
Right.
And so there was a news item where in Venice, right, the canals, because everybody was locked up indoors and stuff, and humans weren't out, doing their due, and the canals were so clean and clear, they saw dolphins basically swimming through them, right?
Oh, wow.
So this poem is called In Venice, Dolphins Swim the Canals.
Interesting.
And the title leads into the poem. In Venice, dolphins swim the canals as LA skies are crystal ball clear, predicting the coming of the cicadas. In DC's cherry blossoms opening early like parasol debutante umbrellas. The streets are empty. Everyone is sheltered in as a virus rages like Ralph Ellison, invisible to the naked eye, while a naked ape, an orange idiot, sans the savant, is babbling about it being a hoax, it's all a hoax, telling us from the White House, don't believe your lying eyes as refrigerated trucks in Brooklyn stockpile bodies in freezers like popsicles. This Agent Orange menace is a virus unto himself, as racism is, as stupidity is, in a country where Confederate statues are more visible than common sense. A virus named after a cheap piss water beer. This menace barks China, 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 as if repulsed by his wife's vagina. At a press conference, he bogarts the mic from the experts who know more about science than he knows about stealing, telling us hydrochloroquine malaria pills are good as Tic Tacs at fighting bad breath. He should know, and if that doesn't work, you could spray down your tongue with Lysol or belt back some Clorox to crank your box. In Venice, dolphins swim the canals free of debris, while here, black joggers are hunted by fathers and sons in a rite of passage Jim Crow outdoor trailer trash parlor game as Amy or Karen or Becky with the bad brain scream hysterically into cell phones at 911 operators in their worst Stanislavski method acting like the black birder is a mockingbird, while an essential worker EMT cannot get any PPE. Instead, she got 8 bullets into her bone-tired sleeping body in a 21-gun salute to T.S. Eliot with a side eye because May is the cruelest month, especially during a lockdown where racism and hate are never quarantined, yet a black man remains a stepping stool for a white man's knee who drummed out Colin Kaepernick as if a flag takes precedence over a black life.
It's wonderful. Wow. Wow. You need to be poet laureate, Medina. Whenever that comes around.
Ishmael Reed said, he did an introduction to one of my books, and he said I was the poet laureate of the broke.
No, Medina, I'm serious. You're getting, if you haven't, I mean, you're in that sphere. It's, it's coming. So just keep,
Well, I'm from the hood, right? I'm from the hood.
Okay.
And so in the hood, we have these things called bodegas, right?
That's
you know how
right.
Around here in Maryland or whatever, DC, they got 7-Elevens everywhere. That's like the corner store.
Right.
To us, the bodega was the corner store.
It's the
right?
corner store, exactly.
And so in the bodega, you find, cats. Why do you find cats? Not at the Mark Hellinger Theater, but at the bodega. They have all these cats, right? So I thought, I need to pay homage to these mofos, right?
I love this poem. This is
called Ode to Bodega Cats.
Yes.
They are, and chancla is the Spanish word for slipper, right? Like a flip flop.
Yeah.
If you be bad, your mama's gonna take off her chancla and whip that ass.
Yeah.
Right. Ode to Bodega Cats. They lay around like that one chancla you could never find, then spring up from nowhere, narrowly knocking down that last box of pigeon peas and rice left over from the Nixon administration with layers of dust thick enough to trampoline off. They help you pick the wrong winning lotto numbers, scratching a random claw drawn and retracted from an unseen paw as you scrutinize the card in the dim bodega light, having forgot your reading glasses once again. When you take 8 years to decide whether you want a ring ding or a slice of pound cake wrapped in what resembles the sofa slip covers your grandmother bought just before summer to have the seat cushions glue themselves to the back of your thighs right before you head out the door to hang out with your friends, when she says, "Mijo, bring me back a devil dog and a Pepsi. And don't forget to bring back my change." It is the bodega cat who puts you on blast, meowing into the store PA system, asking aloud if there's any more Kotex or Goya beans in aisles 3 and 4, so that everyone on your block could clown you for the rest of your life. No, you can't kill a bodega cat. Those mofos will cut you with a quickness. Their claws swifter than a Swiss Army or Ginsu knife, blunter than a ball-peen hammer, or those fillies you get in lieu of bamboo paper. The bodega cat shreds, sharpening his claws just to fuck with you as he lays back smoking a well-rolled joint along the dusty cans of motor oil. No one buys because they don't have rides. This is the hood, my mellow, where bodega cats don't fucks with mice and ride the backs of rats like bronco bulls rambling through the projects like Pamplona. Bodega cats are badass bitches, ghetto snitches. They scratch that ass before it itches, leap up on counters that smell like fishes. They like baby's kids. They don't die, they multiply, and will swat that ass and swat a motherfucker like a fly. They will leave some stank piss for you and have your Haagen-Dazs pint grow hair. Hell, you may spot one with a mouse tail dangling from its slant smile like a gold-toothed Cheshire or uptown Mona Lisa stuck on a porcelain throne, having run out of toilet paper.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And you describe those bodega cats because they don't give a S about anybody. And you better not uncover their hiding place because they get mad. They be right up on the loaves of bread and hiding behind the chips and stuff. So Medina, just to give you some comments, are you seeing the comments here?
No, what are they saying?
Okay, so Queen Amina says, "My mentor and friend, I love you." Pufferino says, "Love you, Medina. You are the best medicine." And
I'm getting for Clem's.
Wow. And Bella Soul Rebel here has been chiming in about your poems, giving comments. Benita Penn said she loved your work, but she had to go to a reading.
Everybody's got to go.
Pufferino said Medina is the king of satire. Wow. Oh yeah. We got Michael, I'm sorry, Michelle Sims says Medina is special.
Uh-oh.
A lot of beautiful comments here. If I try to screenshot it, I think it might cut off the live.
Don't ruin it.
If any of you all are able to screenshot the comments.
Don't ruin the shot.
Yeah, feel free to take a photo and DM me or even Medina so that he can capture some of this. Donna Kiva said, "They don't die, they multiply." Exactly.
Baby's kids.
I love that poem. Thank you for sharing that. And you know what, Medina, I think it shows too that you're not like a stiff poet. Like you're not like, you know, oh, the leaves of grass. You know what I mean? Like you're giving us the real. This is like the people's poetry. And that's why I said you need to be poet laureate, because the poet laureate speaks for the people, to me, should speak for the people in various ways and represent
Well, you know, in American poetry, you had that leap from Whitman to the Beats with Ginsberg and Corso and those cats, and Baraka and Bob Kaufman and them, then to the Black Arts, the New York and all that stuff. So there was these leaps. They went all the way from, there was a big gap from Whitman to people like Langston and the Harlem Renaissance folks, right? Because, you know, the Beats, they took so much from the Harlem Renaissance and that performance stuff, the so-called spoken word, that all comes from the Harlem Renaissance, you know?
Yeah.
So there was these leaps in American poetics. So, you know, there's a rich tradition of not the stuffy stuff, you know?
Indeed. I just want to mention
to be able to do both is nice.
Huh?
To be able to rock both is good to,
it's
you know,
good.
That's what I'm talking about, range.
Exactly. I'm not saying you can't, but I'm saying that's one thing I appreciate about you is your bilingual effect, your trilingual, you know, skills, if you will. To be
Antisaki Shange was good at that. I loved her work for that, you know. You know, I used to read all her books like crazy, like particularly, you know, Nappy Edges. That was like a Bible to me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I miss her. Yeah.
Wow.
So
what else do you want to share?
You know, I'm tempted to read one of the prose pieces, but it might take up too much time.
Is it the pandemic one? Or how about
I was going to do 5 Chanclas of Death, but I think it's a little too long.
Well, but what if you can read an excerpt of it, or wherever you think you want to?
I don't know.
You can read it. Remember, I did mention to you, Instagram is strange. Sometimes they cut you off right at an hour. Like
I just don't want to lose your audience and stuff.
Right, and I just want to. Hi, Melanie.
I mean, we could probably save it for another time. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, let me just talk about Bum Rush to Pay.
Yes, please, and happy anniversary.
This is what Death with Occasional Smiling looks like.
And
I had some great blurts from Rachel Lazar Griffith, Cornelius Eady, the great Cornelius Eady, Pamela Sneed, and Sherry Renee Thomas. You know, these are like fantastic writers.
And you know what?
This
Medina,
is
I'm going to do an October book giveaway of Death with Occasional Smiling. I'll talk to you back channel about that. How I should kind of best go about that. I'll do that here on the IG and be promoting that.
And this is myself and Luis Reyes-Rivera, and as you can see, I look like Fredo from The Godfather with that. Those micro braids. Cool. I hate micro braids.
That's history right there, though. Medina, are you proud of yourself?
I wouldn't say I'm proud of myself, but I am proud of my jokes.
No, okay.
And my students.
Okay.
And where I come from. I don't know. It's hard to just be full of yourself. You know what I mean? I think I just function in a tradition. You know, there's so much good stuff flowing through that. You know, like the river of poetry that Luis Reyes-Rivera talked about in one of his essays. You know, but you know, I would like to probably. I don't know, this is kind of long. Maybe I could just read an excerpt of Lewis's.
Well, read, you know what? Read what you like. And then if you like, you know, if it's long, that's fine. And then after that, we'll start to kind of close out.
I'll just read I'll just read the opening, just the opening of Lewis's piece called The Disdirected. Okay. Just to pay homage to a brother who, you know, he left us a bit too soon, but who was very influential and important. The Disdirected, and this is like an introductory poem for the anthology. Some folk think that poet is but another word for star, where star don't mean to signify beyond the glitter and the glimmer of cold Coke cocktail glasses clicking up against the hard vein sweat of who you know, and how that knowledge could get me into bed with someone who might rub me, if you please. Dust, rust, slowly, solely, nothing else but sheen or shine, making out like substance and substance, have no place beyond the deadly force of cutthroat yesterate, where the mundane shame of pain looks to dumb like crusts of shadows falling into disrepute. But that ain't what a poet is, and stars just seem like that way to those who look but cannot see exactly what they checking out. So that's just a little flavor of Luis Rivera in celebration of our book together.
That's right. And so, you know, in terms of Bum Rush the Page, do you look at the current work that you're editing as kind of being, you know, a sequel of that? Or, you know, does Bum Rush the Page continue in some vein in your work? How do you see that in terms of reflecting on the anniversary? And has it been, is it 20 years or 25 years since?
20 years since Bum Rush.
20 years.
The thing is that when I was working on Bum Rush, I was also working on another anthology. There's a mammoth anthology called Roll Call.
Oh, yeah.
With Samia Bashir and Koresh Ali Lansana.
I remember that.
And that was, when I was working on that book and this book, I remember being in Park Slope at Samia's crib.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, you checked your voicemail messages, you know, use somebody else's phone and you call. And then I didn't have a cell phone, none of that stuff. And my aunt's voice was on the machine, and she was looking for me. And she said that my father was at St. Vincent's Hospital in the Village. And I was like, what? And yeah, he had a stroke and he was laying up in the coma. So in the midst of me working on Bum Rush, working on Roll Call, and working on a children's book called Christmas Makes Me Think, that I was going to surprise my father by dedicating it to him.
Wow. He,
you know, basically passed away when I got to the hospital, and they wanted me to pull the plug, and I said, no. That's not going to happen. And
right.
so anthologies, you know, I kind of got burnt out on that. So I haven't done one in a long time. Then Resisting Arrest, an opportunity to do that, and I really wanted to do that. But doing it by myself was a bit easier than working with so many different people.
Sure.
So that went very smoothly. And I just felt that another anthology that would allow for younger voices, newer poets to, you know, because there's so many people that are coming out now, and there's no venues or avenues for them. So I wanted to bring out new voices, as well as, you know, the generational cats from the Black arts generation down through, you know, our generation. So Black arts through Black Lives Matter, generationally, you know, epically.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So you're serving as a, you know, poetry godfather, so to speak. You know, you're like bringing folks through.
I'm going to make them an offer you can't refuse.
That's wonderful.
Leave the gun, take the cannolis.
So tell us, Medina, where can we best purchase your latest work, Death with Occasional Smiling? How can we best support you at this juncture?
Well, I know people can't stand Amazon, but Amazon has all my stuff there and an expansive bio on me. But wherever books are sold, basically, you know, and I've been fortunate to have a nice little run of books with I Am Alfonso Jones, Resisting Arrest, 13 Ways of Looking at a Black Boy, Death with Occasional Smiling, you know, and so on and so forth.
And do you have any other works of children's stories in the works, a graphic novel, perhaps a follow-up to I Am Alfonso Jones?
Well, Jane Cortez used to tell me, don't never talk about the shit that you're trying to do.
True. I just have
until
to,
it's out there.
As an interviewer, you know, I just always throw that in there, but I get it.
I believe what Jane taught me, and you know, I'm into the Santeria Yoruba type energy, so I have to protect my circle, basically.
You got to protect your stuff, and
just
all
protect
of us
my circle,
like
and just, you know, I don't like to publicize something before it's an actuality.
Sure.
An anthology is different because you have to get people to send some work and stuff like that.
And it's you're pulling from so many other people.
Because you might be working on something and it never like gels, and never comes together and stuff, you know.
So I want to mention Melanie Henderson had said that Medina creates community. Alan King has said, I appreciate the opportunities that Medina is creating for younger writers like myself.
They both come out of my workshop at Howard. That's so
Wow, that
nice.
is so amazing. You guys are so lucky. But they are doing, you know, their own thing. I know. Always,
but you know, a lot of people that come out of my workshops, they go on to do stuff too. So it's like,
yeah,
it's like a commandment. They have to go out and produce and also make venues and opportunities for others.
that's wonderful. Wow, I just don't even know, you know, Medina. So, you know, we're looking forward to everything that you are going to be coming out with in this next year. I know you got some stuff in the works.
Hopefully.
And, you know, still promoting Death with Occasional Smiling. And
I'm supposed to have a chapbook of fiction that's gonna be featured in a weird kiosk where you could buy short story collections.
Oh wow!
In London, basically, at this, you know, Third Man Books did this. In the piece, it has about, I think it has five pieces, I think, and it's called Che Che Cole.
Nice.
Che Che Cole, you know, from the famous Willie Colon song, which is Che Che Cole is an African, I guess, phrase or something. Yeah.
And Medina, at Pufferino has asked, are you giving any more writing workshops online, virtual workshops?
I don't know. I mean, I it's hard to do all these functions because it takes away from what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, then, I mean, I'm sure they'll pop up.
Right. And so your Instagram, Facebook may be the best place to follow you for that. And
I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram now. I mean, I was reluctant, but you know, you got to promote stuff.
That's right. And Lady PCOQ said Bum Rush the Page was her first published poem.
See, that's the beauty, you know.
Yeah.
Being able to do that.
I'm so jealous of the folks. See, I didn't know you then. I was teaching middle school, and I remember, you know, I knew when the books came out. I got it for my middle school students, but I didn't, you know, I wasn't in the circles then, and I was, you know, I'm just really jealous of all the people that were able to pull together and kind of be a part of that part of the.
Do you know who was the first to publish Alice Walker?
Was it Haki?
Langston Hughes.
Oh, it was Langston Hughes.
Do you know how Lucille Clifton began publishing?
No, I don't.
Ishmael Reed shepherded her poems and got them published. Her first poem.
Oh my goodness.
So this is in the tradition.
Yeah.
You know? People have to respect the tradition. Mm-hmm. You can't just pop up out of nowhere and think that you invented the fucking wheel, basically.
True. Oh, no, I don't think I do.
No, I'm saying in general.
No.
So that just in case people are listening,
I say
there is all this history that comes before you that you have to respect, you know?
True.
And like we talked about in another podcast of yours, I think it was last year.
Right.
And you know how I love the Harlem Renaissance writers, and I'm so amazed by their output and stuff like that.
Those folks.
And I'm really waiting to see the movie Passing, based on
Nella Larson. Yeah.
Nella Larson's novel, because she was one of these folks who had early success, but then, you know, just, you know, kind of got disappeared, basically.
Right. Wow.
You know? So maybe this will give more attention to her work again. People look at it in another way. So many writers, they get buried in history and stuff. And that's why, you know, people need to start, if you're going to be a scholar, you know, be an archivist, get into those archives and start finding these jewels, these neglected writers, you know. We shouldn't be having neglected writers of color, you know.
That's true. It's,
I mean, that's what Alice Walker did for Zora Neale Hurston, you know.
That's so true. She gave her resting place, her headstone and her marker there. Yeah. Yeah,
and her work got a new life because, you know, she was shunned after a while, and, you know, she was writing op-eds and stuff, and she was all the way, in Florida somewhere, you know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, one of my relatives only just relayed to me someone in my family who went to Bethune-Cookman that, you know, she knew Mary McLeod Bethune. I didn't know that. And then she
Yeah.
goes, oh, you know, but I don't think they were friends. And there was something going on with that. And I'm like, what? So it's a whole nother story
Yeah,
about
towards
her
the
and
end,
Bethune.
Zora had a lot of problems. She was battling a lot of people and stuff like that. But I'm
Yeah,
glad that, you know, folks like Valerie Boyd and you know, of course, Alice Walker and stuff have given new life to her
I'm
work.
telling
And
you. There's a
yeah,
new book coming out. I can't think of the title,
it's
but I've
already out,
seen
right?
Zora Neale Hurston.
Barracoon?
Well, that one was a couple years ago, I think. There's a new one. It's going
Oh,
to
I
be
didn't know
out.
that.
I want to say 2022 if it's not out already.
Well, they put out a new one by Richard Wright that you know, was neglected and forgotten,
Yeah.
and what they didn't want to publish it at the time, that deals with police brutality.
Wow. Well, now it's
And
spot
it's
on
out
now.
now.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Well, Medina, it's been a pleasure to talk with you today. I'm so happy to see that you are still writing prolifically and, you know, contributing and teaching us through your work. And congratulations again on your 22nd book. And folks, please
thank you.
pick up a copy of his book on Amazon. I'm going to be advertising a book giveaway of Tony's latest book for an October giveaway on my Instagram here. And I hope you'll follow Tony on Instagram and also follow Nerdacity Podcast. And
Brought to you by Deer
for
Park.
and stay tuned for future podcasts, both on Anchor, where I do the audio podcast, and here live on Instagram. And Medina, do you have any last words for us from the master
I
poet?
want to thank you for always being the most gracious of hosts and inviting me and helping me promote this joint. And I visited with your class, your students.
Yes. And
Also,
Medina, I could not promote that because I didn't get a release from them. I don't have permission to use them publicly, but thank you for
but I
appearing.
want to thank you for being from St. Louis, like Entasaki and Miles Davis and Quincy Troop and what's the dancer? Catherine Dunham?
And Catherine Dunham, that's right, East
You know
St.
what I'm
Louis.
saying?
And
Also, I want to
Eugene
thank all of
Redmond,
these,
East St. Louis.
Eugene, and I want to, and Dumas was out there at some point.
Henry Dumas, that's right.
But I want to also thank all of the great poet, artists, and scholars that showed up for this podcast and made those beautiful comments. We need to support one another and keep the struggle going. You know, like James Baldwin taught me, you got to bear witness.
Right on. And we shall. Thank you again. And thank you everyone for joining us. Hope we'll stay in touch with you all. And Medina, this live, with your permission, will be on the Instagram page. Unless
Beautiful. Yes.
Okay, so people can watch a replay once I get a funky little graphic up with your photo.
And you know how I always end my classes with ciao bella. Ciao bella.
Ciao, Bella. Okay. Peace and love, everybody. Peace, Medina. Thank you.